Hello, hello, and welcome to the Magic is in You podcast. Thank you so much for being here to episode number 12. Holy cow, I cannot believe that it's already episode number 12. The Magic is in You podcast is designed to empower you to tune and tap in and turn on the magic within inside of you, releasing self-doubt and limiting beliefs so that you can powerfully, bravely, authentically take action, aligned action in your life, cultivating the life that you truly desire that lights you the fuck up from the inside out, where you are owning your badassery, owning your magic, and really living this life on purpose while you're here now. I'm so excited you're here today because today is the very first interview for the Magic is in You podcast. I'm so excited to share with you Courtney MCarthy, who is a powerhouse and founder and CEO of Loyobo Fitness. And Loyobo means love your body, just for short, which I just obviously love. As a self-love coach promoting self-love, this is right up my alley. So I'm super, super excited to share this powerful conversation with you today, where we are talking about why she ditched the diet culture, how the power of words when it comes to our relationship with the body has completely transformed the way she thinks and feels about herself, the way she teaches her clients and community and grows her community, and how she has cultivated a loving and supportive community of women who are all on a mission to love their bodies. I'm super excited to dive into this conversation today. But before we dive in, I have a couple things to share with you. Oh my goodness gracious. So last weekend, I got to host my very first in-person workshop at our newly finished Inspiration Cabin, which is the two-car garage that I've alluded to renovating on our property here over the last few years. We finished it at the beginning of the summer. We hosted Airbnb guests all summer long. We had our steel artwork and furniture in there. And this past weekend, I got to host my very first in-person workshop. It was the Embodied Alignment workshop, and the women who came showed up so full-heartedly, openly, authentically, ready to grow, know themselves, love themselves, allowing them to tune and tap in and turn on the magic within inside of them. It was so fucking magical. It was so much fun that I'm so excited to say I'm going to be hosting an online workshop this weekend on Sunday, the 24th at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. So if you are around live, if you are listening to this in real time, the Allowing workshop this weekend is going to be a powerful way to allow you to tune and tap into your body so that we can allow ourselves to feel our emotions, allow them to flow without getting stuck. We're going to be doing some somatic practices to really practice feeling our emotions, allowing them to flow without getting stuck to where they boil up to the surface in some sort of outburst or something later. So this is going to be a super powerful workshop this weekend, the Allowing workshop. Like I said, live this Sunday, November 24th at 11 a.m. Mountain Standard Time. If you can't make it live, don't worry, I've got you. I will be offering a free replay for the 2 weeks after the workshop. And if you are listening to this in some distant future, shoot me a DM that says Allowing workshop, and maybe I can hook you up for free still. So check it out in the show notes below. And without further ado, I'm so excited to introduce you to the powerhouse, Courtney MCarthy, who is the CEO and founder of Loyobo, a community of women who are sick of trying to be smaller. This isn't about weight loss. This is about learning how to love your body and feel strong so you can take up more space in your life. Radical body acceptance, joyful movement, and food freedom. Courtney's mission as an ACE certified fitness instructor, body image, and mindful eating coach is to show you how to write your own rules when it comes to fitness and health. She will be your biggest hype girl along the way. Courtney is always down for a dance party. When she is not working, she loves going on long walks with her puppy Archie and cuddling with her cat Munchkin. The Loyobo virtual platform and community includes live fitness classes, on-demand videos, group coaching, cooking calls, mindful eating support, and more. Thank you so much for being here today, Courtney. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm honored to be the first guest.
Yes, I just shared with Courtney before I hit record that she is my very first guest on the Magic is in You podcast, which I'm so grateful that you're here today. Thank you for being the very first one, and on the full moon, which I'm also very thrilled about.
Oh yeah, we got the good vibe energy going here.
We absolutely do. And I connected with Courtney through a group where she shared some of her journey and was excited to connect with more people. And Courtney, can you take me to a moment in time where you feel like your journey kind of really began, where some seeds were planted that took you on your journey to get to where you are now?
Yeah, I feel like there were two defining moments that I can think back on. The first was my defining moment of what got me into fitness because, truth be told, this is not my first career, nor is it
Fair.
what I went to school for. It was definitely not, I feel like a lot of people in their fitness career journey are like, I played sports in high school and then I went into kinesiology and then I became a trainer. Not my pathway at all. I actually did a master's in public policy and public administration. I was working for the federal government. And my like aha moment was I went to a Zumba class when I was living in Ottawa. It was my first Zumba class. I remember being really nervous, and it was a life-changing moment of this group of women who was from all shapes, all backgrounds, all sizes, having a woman at the front who had a normal body, meaning she didn't look like the typical like super buff fitness instructor. And for the first time in my adult life, I was like, whoa, is this what fitness is supposed to be like? I had so much fun. I wasn't worried about how I was looking. I was connecting with the other women, and the hour just like flew by. And it was like, oh my God, I would love to do this forever. So that's what kind of started my relationship with fitness, where I was learning more from a joyful movement standpoint and again connecting with my body rather than up until that point it was decades of hating my body, using fitness as a way to punish my body, fitness being something that you dread and like just have to do to look a certain way. So that was a real big moment for me. But the second big moment for me was when I learned the impact of words and the impact of language and truly stepped into the anti-diet realm of things. And it was actually, I had a client. So this was when I was now working in the fitness industry, and I had evolved past Zumba into boot camps and strength training and cardio. And I had a woman in a larger body in my boot camp at the time really call me out on some of the language that I was using that was very fat phobic and full of weight stigma at the time. I had still drank the Kool-Aid of diet culture and was still very much, I wanted movement to be fun and joyful, but still very much it was connected to how your body looked.
Sure.
So this woman called me out um, and said that I had basically made her feel like crap. And it
Mm.
forced me to take a really deep look into myself and how can I exist as a trainer when my whole mission is to make women feel good. And here I was using language and teaching something that had the opposite effect. So that forced me to do a whole bunch of research into diet culture, a whole bunch of research into the body positivity movement, and really change the trajectory of my career from being, okay, this can't just be about fitness. This has to be about more. This has to be about our relationship with our bodies, learning about the power of language, learning about what diet culture is and how it impacts us, and having that really feminist approach as well, where as you said when you were reading my bio, like it's not just about your relationship with your body, because your relationship with your body is really the foundation to everything else that you want to do in life. And I think something that I'm
Mhm.
so passionate about is getting women to take up space, to participate in their communities, to make memories, to be in photos, and all of that relies on us feeling worthy in our skin. So those are the
Oh,
two, I feel like, the ones that stick out in my head the most.
absolutely. I mean, those are two really profound experiences. First,
Mhm.
having that I mean, I have like full body chills as I'm thinking about this, but like having that experience where for the first time you had fun moving
Yeah.
your body, like
I
that's
I cried multiple times in that Zumba class, and not like bad cry, like ugly cry of just like, "This is so wonderful."
yes. Oh my God, I love that. Just like the actual and having fun moving your body, not
Yeah.
from a place of, like you said, punishment, but a place of like celebrating what your body can do. That's
Exactly.
phenomenal. I'm a yoga instructor, so and
Yeah. You get it. You've had the
I
experience
y-
too.
yes, I've had a number of experiences, and I
Yeah.
certainly did not start out as a typical yogi. My body is still not like a yoga body, I wouldn't
Yeah.
say, and so I really appreciate you sharing that because when I was, for example, for me personally, when I was able to flip that script from punishing my body for exercise and movement into like really moving from a place of celebration of, oh, look at how strong my body is. That was when my life completely transformed.
And it's a message of hope in that I can't tell you how many women have told me, I just don't like exercise, fitness just isn't my thing. It doesn't work well with my body. I don't enjoy it. And I
Yeah.
and I need to emphasize that like this Zumba class for so I was in my 20s when I took it. Up until that point, I had tried other dance fitness classes and was
Mm-hmm.
like, absolutely, there's no way this is for me. I didn't like it. Even though I loved dancing, just like in my personal life, I was like, absolutely no way. So keep trying because so much of it comes down to the right format, the right instructor, the right environment, the right time in your life. So I truly do think that there's a movement out there that everyone will feel that powerful connection to and that aha of like, oh, this is how it's supposed to feel. So please keep trying. It may be the thing that you think you hated.
Totally.
Be willing to try it again. Be open to trying it again because truthfully, if you had told me that was like I've tried everything, I might as well try a Zumba. And if you told me going in that it was going to lead to me being a Zumba instructor, I would have laughed in your face. So
So what was different about Zumba that like made you feel so free and accepted and like full in your body?
it was the instructor.
Oh,
So
totally.
I taught Zumba for 10 years. I no longer teach it anymore for a multitude of reasons, but I still teach dance fitness classes, but I
Mhm.
just call them Dance It Out now.
Yes.
But it was the instructor and it was the environment in in the space that she created. I mean, I feel like every adult can relate to how hard it is to be social as adults with strangers and how hard it is to make new friends. And walking into this class, and it was really the top down. The instructor created the vibe, but then every woman that was at that class, I remember people instantly coming up to me and being like, "Hey, it's your first class." Like, and no pressure and no judgment, but just like a genuine want to meet me, a genuine want to connect, a genuine desire to like make sure I felt welcome. And then that in turn changed the way that I experienced the movement. There was so much laughter. There was zero pressure of like getting the moves right, which I feel like is a lot of dance classes. And it all came from that energy the instructor was giving off of like, this is why we're here.
Yes. Oh, I love that so much because it really is when you're teaching any movement class, be it Zumba, yoga, anything, it really sets the tone when you can come from that place of acceptance and openness and joy and making it fun and not so
Yeah.
serious like in that celebration manner. So being I know, or I thought it was an interesting connection. So the two moments that you shared, the instructor being so incredible, your first Zumba class, and creating that environment and that vibe of low pressure, high fun, and just like that celebration vibe. And then also knowing how impactful her languaging probably was in that class. You
Mhm.
mentioned the second like really big moment for you when you started learning about the diet culture or diving into diet culture and the words that you use. Um, do you mind if I ask what that experience was like? I mean, I've been called out as a yoga instructor more than once, so I feel for you. It is not a fun
It's
experience.
not a fun experience, but I feel like uh s- I've since messaged that woman and we haven't ever reconnected, but I really
Mhm.
wanted her to know like I'm so grateful. I'm deeply grateful because it's not easy
No.
to call somebody out and it's not easy to be the catalyst for change. And I'm sure that her vocalizing, when you vocalize something like that, it's not always well received. It was well received with me. Not at first. At first I was super like, "What are you talking about?" It was a comment I had made about tank top arms. And at the time, I didn't realize that I was implying that basically like to look good in a tank top, your arms had to look a certain way. And that's what she called me out on and kind of said like, I'm going to wear a tank top regardless of what my arms look like. And that's what got me to
Mhm.
reevaluate everything. And it did. It really was one of those necessary moments where it made me reevaluate everything. It made me break down what I thought I knew about fitness and my body and what I was doing and why I was doing it. And I really had to be okay with getting vulnerable with myself and admitting that I was part of the problem. I was doing harm when my intention was to do good. And I'm so thankful I had that moment because I feel like since that time, my ability to be an instructor has grown so much. And I'm so much better able to serve the women that come to my classes. And I feel so much more aligned and connected with my values and who I am as a person and the kind of world that I want to live in. So, and it's helped as my body has changed along the way too, is it's helped me have the tools and the resources to feel better about myself and to let go of my own weight loss obsession.
Yeah, because I can I can feel like the conflict, because how many times had you probably heard that in a fitness class from other instructors?
Oh, countless times. Or like, the let's work hard today so that we can have the cookies on the weekend or whatever it is.
Totally, right.
Mhm.
We've been so ingrained in our brains for our entire life by society and other fitness instructors and this and that. And it's so easy to, especially until we're aware of it, the wording, it's so easy to overthink or like not think about the
Yeah.
intentionality of the wording. Um,
Especially when shame, I feel like, is the
mm,
most common motivator when it comes to both fitness, shame and fear when it comes to
yeah.
both fitness and health in general. That's
Hmm.
what both like on the medical side of things, like when we're thinking of doctors or health practitioners, but also fitness trainers, dietitians, anyone kind of in that industry. Shame and fear are the most common ways that we try to get people to change their behavior. So that was just something I was like, I didn't question it. I didn't
Right.
question
Yeah.
it because even up until that point in my life, that's what I had used to try to motivate myself to change and to do better
Hmm.
or what I thought was better. So it definitely, and I think that that's what I now teach my clients is like the first step is always awareness. The first step is always like you can't change what you don't know. And so the first step is always having that recognition, which can be the hardest part. You have to be ready. Like I had to be ready to receive that feedback and take that look at my own actions and my own mindset.
Yeah, you had mentioned that it was not only impactful in the way that you were wanting to teach and relate to your students, but also that it made you really look back and like look in the mirror
Oh
and look
yeah.
at yourself and your feelings. What
Mhm.
was what was that journey really like when you when you dove into kind of exploring how you were talking to yourself or motivating
Yeah.
yourself? Like,
Yeah. Well, it was kind of like serendipitous timing because at that point in my life, I was at my smallest and I had gotten there through some really kind of questionable,
mm,
unhealthy means, like most people do who undergo kind of like dramatic weight loss. Um, and I was struggling in the sense that I had transformed how my body looked, but I was still waiting for that feeling to come that I had been looking for. I was like, I thought this was supposed to solve everything. I thought I was now supposed to be like confident and like worry free. And yet I was more obsessed with my weight than ever and more hard on myself than ever before. And so I really was kind of looking for explanation and new answers. And so when I started looking into body positivity, it's where I had realized that my entire self-worth was tied to my weight and what I looked like. And so that in turn obviously came out as my language as an instructor and how I taught as an instructor was even if I on the surface of things said, of course I don't judge people based on their weight. Of course, like people matter more than what they look like. That was still the benchmark that I was using for success and failure.
yeah.
So that was what I really had to look at. And was like, it was followed by so many aha moments because I mean, how can you call yourself a feminist if you think that women's worth is related to their weight? You know what I mean? Like, and up until that point, I strongly identified as a feminist. I strongly identified as like loving women and supporting women and empowering women. And when you're faced with that truth, where you're like, this is the root of my thinking, it's a powerful moment of being like, okay, well, I now that I know better, I have to do better. And now that I see this link, I want to do everything I can to to undo that link. And so it really helped with me being able to start to that out and unpack that concept for myself. And uh not only let go of the weight loss obsession, but change, yeah, how I spoke to myself, the language that I used to define success and failure, healthy and unhealthy, attractive and unattractive. I mean, again, this all didn't happen overnight.
Right. No, it
I'm
never
giving the
happens
like,
overnight.
yeah, I'm giving the like Coles notes. This took many years, but yeah, it was definitely, it all came down to me being like, who do I want to be and what sort of world do I want to create? And obviously this isn't working for me. So can I find something that works better?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just looking at your community online now, it looks like you've truly created that empowerment for women and to celebrate feeling good in their movement, in their being, in their bodies. And you told me at the beginning of this that your business name Loyobo, excuse me, is your or love your body is
Yeah.
it's like the love your body for short or short
Yes.
for love your body, which I
Yeah.
absolutely I just adore this and appreciate it so much. As every woman has had a journey with their own body. I was a massage therapist for many years, and that was what kind of started to get me into my body a little bit. But it wasn't really until I started diving into my movement practice more that I really started getting into my body. And then it took me a while to get into mindset around how I was talking to myself. It's always an evolution. It's always layers upon layers upon layers. You said that there were a lot of aha moments along the way after that student of yours in like or shared what she did, which then set you on this complete transformation, it sounds like, in the way not only that you teach and spoke to your students, but in the way you talk to yourself and you care for yourself and you relate to yourself. What was one of those aha moments that really stands out as significant for you?
Well, I think as you said, it's recognizing. So at first I thought fitness was the end goal, and it was recognizing no, fitness is the foundation. And a
Mm,
lot of us, as you said, this kind of like cascade of layers upon layers that you end up
yeah.
going through to get to the point of like I truly can say now that I love my body. Um, not because of how it looks and because of how it looks, like both.
Yeah. It can
um,
be a both and,
yeah,
right?
yeah, it can be a both and. And so when I first realized that, I was like, fitness is what started the pathway. And I think that that's how it works for a lot of women is we have some sort of desire to move our bodies more, whether it's because it's as simple as, we don't feel good in our bodies, or a doctor has told us to move more, or we've experienced an injury. A lot of those are the kind of catalysts that get
Mhm.
women through my door. Um, but then it's when they get to experience the sort of powerful movement that you and I have been talking about, this kind of like these joyful movements, these moments where they're connecting with themselves, they're connecting with other women, then it starts to kind of create that snowball effect of like, oh, this feels good. What else feels good in my body? And starting to unlearn the different ways that we've thought of movement up until that point. So that was definitely one of those aha moments where I think it was after having a couple of interactions with like watching students. It's really common, like going to the gym back when I had a brick and mortar studio. Going to the gym is
Mhm.
a vulnerable experience. So I can't tell you, especially when you're running a studio where like 90% of the women are, sorry, 90% of the participants coming are women. there were
Mhm.
a lot of tears.
Oh,
There were
yeah.
a lot of moments where, especially because of how I was teaching, women would end up crying or opening up to me or sharing, really deep, profound emotions that were coming up in class. Fitness, especially when we're talking about yeah, yoga, stretching, pushing yourself hard, it brings up stuff. So
Absolutely.
I started providing that kind of support more and more and more and helping coach them through it. So that was definitely a big part of it. And
Mhm.
also that community.
Yeah.
So I had built that community in my brick and mortar. I I always used to say that like gyms are the new churches, where gyms are now the ones that like if somebody's sick, if somebody has a family member pass away, like, my community at the gym were the ones that were bringing the casseroles or sending the cards or
Oh.
sending the flowers, having, retirement parties and celebrating anniversaries and celebrating birthdays. That's what we did besides just fitness. And when COVID happened and everything was shut down, I really panicked because I was like, how on earth? I associated the internet and being online, which is what we were now forced to do. I associated that with a lot of negativity. And I was
Mhm.
like, how on earth are we going to be able to create that same kind of connection, that same kind of community when we're not physically together? So that was a big learning curve. And, was definitely faced with a bunch of new challenges as far as how do I maintain that community vibe. But so happy that I think that now it's gotten stronger than ever,
Oh.
because not only are we able to connect with women all over the world, but
Mhm.
also there's that real time ability now where somebody can be in the mess, in the moment, in the tough time, and they can reach out and receive support like instantly rather than waiting to get to the gym. Now we have groups and communication methods where women are I'm still part of it, but they're also taking control of just like they support one another with the values that our community has. So it's that was a really powerful shift as well, of having being forced to go online and seeing how we would still be able to create that community.
And so powerful that you really like leaned into the change, because it's so easy in something like that to be derailed and like be like, fuck
Oh
it,
yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
Oh,
um,
trust me, I had many fuck it moments. But at the time, like, we had no other choice, right? And so
absolutely.
there is that. I mean, not that I say that COVID was a good thing by any means of the word. I would say this is the only silver lining, is that it really forced a lot of learning and pushing through those really challenging moments and a lot of doubt and a lot of technical frustrations
Oh my gosh, right?
to get to a very positive other side of things. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and also just being intentional about creating something out of what is, like being dealt the hand of cards and okay, what cards can I play here, and being
Yeah.
intentional with that, and really working to continue the community vibe, where even it sounds like you felt that at your first Zumba class, where all of the other participants in the Zumba class were like, "Hey, it's your first class." Like you just mentioned, the women in your community are there supporting each other because it's the vibe from the top down, right? You've created
Yeah.
that vibe where you are supporting them, and then you also are empowering them to support each other,
Yeah.
because that's how that community really intertwines, right? Oh.
Yeah. Well, and what's kind of cool is that that moment I had at the gym,
Mhm.
it took a lot for me. I had to build quite a bit of confidence to feel comfortable in gyms before ever going to that Zumba class. And there was a lot of insecurities and anxieties and fears going into that class itself. And what I love now is we can kind of take a lot of that out of it with being online, is that yes, you might still have the fears and anxieties and insecurities, but you're able to do it from your home. You're able to do it where you already feel safe. And
Yes.
you can have those layers where even when we're having our live classes, you can have your camera off. You can still be there and still be interacting in your own way, but having those, boundaries there and those accommodations where you can still feel comfortable based on where you're at. And I'm finding that we're able to reach so much more women because it's so much easier to access the services than physically being ready to go into a gym space, which is notoriously like unsafe both for women and for, minority groups and for people in larger bodies, right? So we're
Yeah.
able to take away a lot of those fears and anxieties.
And I appreciate you talking about creating that safety within your community too, because gyms are like intimidating as fuck if you're not a gym goer.
Oh yeah.
It's so intimidating. I have tried over the years to be a gym person, and always, like, no matter how long I went, even if I was going for 6 months, I still didn't feel comfortable or like excited ever to go to the gym. And so being able to create that safety and actually focusing on that safety also, I think, takes it a layer deeper and is so much more serving for the people who are in your community, for the women who do want to create that feeling of safety in our body. Because I feel like when we don't feel safe in our bodies, not just to go to the gym, but just in general, if we're not feeling safe in our bodies, it's um, well, you've probably experienced some challenges. What kind of challenges have you either witnessed with your clients or personally experienced when you don't feel safe in your body, or if they don't feel safe in their body? What
Yeah.
challenges
Well,
have you kind of experienced there?
if you don't, I feel like the most basic summation is if you don't feel safe in your body, you don't feel safe being seen and heard.
Yeah.
So even something as simple as like applying for the promotion,
Hmm.
as I said, showing up in photos, like allowing
Absolutely.
your family to take pictures of you.
Hmm.
Um, I've had many clients say, wearing a two-piece swimsuit for the first time in like 20 years without wearing a t-shirt to cover it up.
Yeah.
Um, or going to eat at McDonald's and having like a delicious hamburger lunch without shaming yourself or feeling terrible for hours and hours and hours afterwards. So there's a lot of ways that I think we don't realize how much, like, I think for many of us, we think of our body as like the last tier. Like, we think, okay, I'm going to get life figured out at home. I'm going to get life figured out at work. I'm going to wait till my kids are grown and then I'll have time to
Hmm.
invest in myself. Then I'll have time, or when I have more time, when I have more money, then I'll do the hard work. And
Yeah.
in reality, often, you know, the milestones that we celebrate in our community, instead of celebrating weight loss or, you know, getting into smaller dress sizes, we celebrate things like I even something as simple as, I get messages on social media being like, I applied for like a modeling call for my favorite underwear brand or something like that. And just them being able to basically raise their hand and say, like, yes, I'm here. I want this thing. I want to be chosen. I want to be part of the consideration. And that's what lights me up like nothing else.
Oh my gosh.
Those moments.
Because it's not just the movement. It's not just
Mhm.
the physical part, but it's how we think and feel about ourselves, right? Feeling uh, good enough, or like safe
Yeah.
enough, or trusting ourselves enough to where you're applying to an underwear model gig. That is
Yeah.
so
Well,
fun.
it's your time and energy, right? Like
Mhm.
when you're spending your time and energy, and the average woman spends like 17 years of her life on a diet, and that doesn't include the time we spend looking in the mirror, the time we spend stressing out in change rooms, the times we spend, putting on outfit after outfit to try to make ourselves look smaller and feel better. So, and from a money perspective, the average woman spends over like $300,000 in during her lifetime on like beauty products. And so
Whoa.
to me, when I hear statistics like that, it's like how the world is missing out from 50% of the population because we're not like, think of if you could get 17 years of your life back, like what would you do with that time? What would you want to create? What would you want to pursue? What would you want to learn? Who would you want to spend that time with? And that
Hmm.
to me is my bigger why, is like I want the world to experience the full presence of women who are there mentally and physically, because we're not worrying about how our body looks.
Oh my gosh. And that's just so powerful. And the ripple of that is just totally, it's infinite, right?
Infinite in every industry, in every field, in every community. We would all experience a different kind of place if women got to show up fully.
Oh, yeah. I'm so excited for this world that we're cultivating and creating, because it
Exactly.
is so wild to think about. Some of those statistics that you just shared were quite like heart-wrenching, frankly. So when you've been working with yourself to grow the safety and trust within yourself, what what's been most helpful for you along your journey to grow safety and trust within yourself, to be able to be seen, to be able to be heard, and create this powerful, incredible love your body movement?
Yeah. I mean, there's so many things that I could go into. The most basic one, or I feel like I'll share two most basic ones, is number one,
Mhm.
mindfulness of
Yes.
learning how to be present in my body,
Mm.
learning how to be present with my thoughts, learning how to separate feelings from truth,
Oh, yeah.
especially when it comes to self talk.
Mm.
Um, that's been a huge one along
Mhm.
the way of learning how to be present. And I think that that goes hand in hand with anything to do with our bodies, is learning how to tune inwards and look for those answers and those signals coming from inside of ourselves. But a
Mhm.
big part when I talk about trust is that many of us know how to build trust with other people. Like if we're thinking about, when you first start dating somebody, or you're trying to cultivate a friendship, many of us know the things that we do or the things that we look for in other people that make them trustworthy. Like if you were
Mhm.
to paint a picture of a trustworthy adult, you'd be like, okay, well, it's somebody who does the things that they say they're going to do. It's somebody who shows up for me consistently. It's somebody who means what they say. It's somebody who's honest. And yet we wonder why we can't trust ourselves. And yet, when we look at how we cultivate that relationship with ourselves, we often aren't doing those things. So, how many times do you not do what you say you're going to do when it comes to your self care? How many
Mhm.
times do you ditch the movement class because you don't feel like it, even though you had made that promise to yourself? How
Mhm.
many times are you not honest with yourself when it comes to, you know, how you're feeling, what you want, what you desire? How many times are you mean to yourself? Like all of these
Right?
things. So
Mhm.
that's really important. And actually, that was a big mindset shift for me of when I started realizing I have to treat myself as if I'm trustworthy in order for me to trust myself. Like
Yeah.
I have to show up consistently. I have to keep my promises to myself. I have to be honest. I have to be reliable. Um, because that's how trust is built.
Absolutely. And like you said, we're even taught how to be trustworthy people towards other people, right? Or
Yes,
what to look for in a trustworthy person. But that was never a discussion about like inward trust. Like
exactly,
that
exactly.
for me has been a huge revelation as well in my growth journey. But also I notice that when you said both the mindfulness and when you're really working on the trusting in yourself, it both comes back to awareness, right?
Yeah,
Like you said at the beginning, it all starts with awareness. It starts with being able to track the thoughts and understand what thoughts are running through our head. It starts with being able to recognize and see maybe why we don't necessarily trust ourselves, and looking at the nooks and crannies that we haven't like looked at or dusted in a while or shine the light on in a while. And it can be challenging to do that, but it's,
yeah.
for me, I know it's been some of the most powerful and transformative work. How do you help your clients really look at those nooks and crannies and that awareness that is not usually very fun to look at first?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is this is where movement comes in, is
Totally.
using somatic practices
Yeah.
and using movement as a tool for
Hmm.
allowing ourselves to explore and release our feelings. I
Yes.
mean, that's a big part of it. I have one of my favorite videos that's in our on-demand library. It's a 5-minute video for like when you're pissed. And I'm
Yes.
like grab a pillow, let's go. We're going to spend 5 minutes together. So it doesn't feel like a workout per se, but we're using movement to be like, this is what it's about here, is just letting yourself be angry and learning how to release it in ways that are helpful and healthy. So that's definitely part of it, is teaching them how to use movement to feel their feelings.
Yes.
And another part of it is that confidence piece of
Mm.
reminding them and getting them to remind themselves of how strong they are. And that even though one of my favorite expressions is magic happens when you allow yourself to be uncomfortable. So remembering all those times that, okay, I've been uncomfortable before and I've survived it. I've been uncomfortable before and I have overcome that. And here are all the good things and my reminders and my evidence. I teach them how to build that evidence pile of how strong I am, and all the things that I've overcome before, and that this is temporary and I can get through this moment too. And knowing that and reminding them that going through it is the only way to get past it. You know, the more
Mm.
we ignore it, the more we let it sit on that dusty shelf, the
Yes,
more that
totally.
it's going to just keep haunting us. So it's,
Hmm.
you know, the other expression I use is, if you want to feel differently, you have to be willing to do differently. So if ignoring it and pretending it hasn't been there clearly hasn't worked to date, otherwise they wouldn't be listening to this podcast, they wouldn't be coming to
Hmm.
me. So we have to be willing to do something different. And
Yes.
oftentimes that means looking that shame, looking the
Mhm.
uncomfortable stuff in the eye.
Yeah. And I 1,000% agree about how even being able to like peek over in the corner of the
Yeah.
dusty shelf, right? Movement is such an incredible and powerful gateway to get us there. I always loved this. My massage teacher, when I was in training a long time ago, always used to say, there's an issue in every tissue. And now it's so fun now because the science has come out to actually back that, and
Yeah.
how emotion does, especially if we don't allow ourselves to feel emotion, it literally stores in our body. It stores within the fascia and the connective tissue in our body energetically. And so when we're allowing ourselves to move our body, move our being, it allows ourselves to actually move stuff that we haven't looked at in a long time out. And that's where you have people who, not just people, you and I have both experienced emotional release in movement
Yes.
practices. I used to have people on my massage table all the time breaking down. They'd be bawling their eyes out and be like, I don't know what's wrong. And I would just reassure them that it's okay, that this is just a release. And they would be so confused because they didn't understand what it was about. And at that time, I didn't have the language to help them through that, as
Yeah.
far as how our subconscious and our body is so deeply like connected, and how the energy is so deeply connected. But it's incredibly powerful to create that safe space for movement, and then we can get into our bodies to build the safety, to build the self-trust, to allow the awareness, to allow ourselves to feel safe enough for the awareness to even look over there in the corner,
Yeah.
to get through that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, one of the powerful, actually, you had asked me about, I had my first ever retreat this past weekend.
Yes, yes. Oh,
And one of the,
congratulations.
thank you. And one of the pieces of kind of understanding of our nervous system that we talked about was like, in reality, we have the same nervous system that many mammals do.
Mhm.
And when you think about the way, like, if you, I actually use the example of dogs because as a dog mom, I
Me
see
too.
this regularly. And anyone who's been around dogs or been around any animals will also see this, which is the shaking, the physical shaking, that when the way that our nervous system is designed is that it's designed to respond to temporary threats. Um, so we're supposed to have the threat appear. Our nervous system, ramps itself up for that fight, flight, fawn, freeze, whatever our response is. And then there's meant to be a release. And how
Hmm.
animals often show this is that they shake their full body and they go, "Ooh, okay, reset." Even if it's a positive kind of, stressor. Like even when my dog, when we have big playtime, he'll stop and he'll kind of shake it out. And there's that
Hmm.
end, there's that release. But for many modern day stresses, right, we don't have that end. You don't all of a sudden at the end of the workday be like, okay, well, now I don't have to go back to work so I can let it go. It's like, no, I know I'm going back there tomorrow.
Yeah.
So using movement, we can create that final release to teach our nervous system to come back down to treat that threat as temporary. And that's so powerful. It's even why I teach shaking as like a somatic practice of emotional release, of just, just let it go.
Absolutely. I teach shaking as well because
Yeah.
I've found it so
So
helpful.
powerful.
Oh, so powerful. And I was watching a training somewhat recently in the last year, and this doctor was doing studying in Africa. And there was a moment, this was about 20 years ago, there was a moment where there was bombs going off, and so they all went into the bomb shelter, and all of the children were shaking in the bomb shelter. And the doctor looked around and he noticed that none of the adults were shaking in the bomb shelter, even though there was bombs going off and all of this was happening outside. The children were shaking, and he actually asked the adults afterwards why they didn't shake as well. And they said that they didn't want the kids to be or to think that they were nervous. And then he noticed patterns after these different incidences, because it was kind of ongoing in this area at the time. He noticed patterns after these where the adults were showing really significant signs of trauma, obviously, but that the children did not show nearly the signs of trauma that the adults did. And so he started doing more and more research about shaking and the nervous system, and understanding how it is, like you said, just like our animal friends, right?
Yeah.
It's that same nervous system, and it is the release that lets it go. And that's why when we don't allow ourselves to shake in the moment, for example, if you're at work and you're in an experience at work, you're not typically going to just like, whoo, start to bounce it out and shake, unless you're like maybe like me. But
Yeah.
but typically we're going to sit there still, nod, do the conversation, make it through that, and then it literally gets stored. You feel your whole entire body tense up, and it gets stored in our body. And through somatic practices like shaking, like dancing, just moving our body, allowing ourselves to move our body, we can release that stuff, even if we're not consciously thinking about the exact things that we're releasing.
Yeah. And that's part of that body trust too, is trusting that our bodies know what they're doing, and
Yes,
leaning into the things that feel most natural on like a primal level.
totally.
And reconnecting with those kind of signals and urges that our bodies are telling us, and trusting that, like, I think it's a really patriarchal kind of colonial way of thinking, of like this idea that we have to dominate our bodies, that we have to
Mm.
tightly control and tightly restrict them, when in reality it's like, no, like, let's flip that script and say, like, regardless of your religious or creation beliefs, like, they are amazingly designed, and our bodies are so like intelligent. And
Oh.
the more we work with them rather than trying to fight against them or press them down, the easier that life is, and the better that you'll feel, for sure.
Oh, truly, absolutely. Well, I want to be actually, I have one more couple questions. Tell
Sure.
me about how your first retreat went.
Oh, it was,
Congratulations again.
thank
That's so
you.
freaking exciting. Tell me
Thank
about
you.
how it went. What were some of the revelations in it? And tell me how your amazing women, did you have 12 of them there? Is that right?
12, including myself. Yeah.
Oh,
Mhm.
amazing. So
Yeah.
what was the transformation like? Tell me all about it.
I mean, the biggest one that they said is, I got them. I laughed because I told them, I warned them, I was like, this is not a fluff retreat. Like, we're going to get into the muck. Like, and when we're doing icebreakers, it's not going to be the fluffy icebreakers that you used to. Like, we're going to create that safety with one another right away. And that was the response they got. Whereas I had a few of them tell me, like, I didn't realize it was possible to connect with strangers so
Mm.
quickly. And have them leaving, after 3 days, going from strangers to being like an intimate part of each other's support system. So that was like amazing to see. Oh, and the food was like, it was so good. We had way too much food, but that's like the best kind of problem to have.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And just, having lots of moments where women were letting themselves be seen and be heard, by this group, that in a way that maybe they hadn't ever had before, was so powerful. And I just like, I already like, I'm still in recovery mode, but I already like am like buzzing to be like, okay, when can we do it again? When's the next one?
So amazing to be able to have that deep connection and create the safety in the group immediately like that, to be able to have such a fabulous, expansive, and impactful and transformational weekend. What was one of your biggest like takeaways or lessons from leading your very first retreat in person, or was it your first in person or just first retreat in general?
First retreat in general.
Yay.
Um, like I'd done events and things like that, but this was the
Uh-huh.
first like overnighter and multi-day experience.
Yes.
Oh, what a good question. I I mean, I'm a chronic over planner, so I like to have like 3 or 4 backup plans. And something that because I asked for a lot of feedback before even planning the retreat and going into it, I asked my community a lot of questions of like, what do you want and what does your ideal retreat experience look like? And I'm really proud of myself because I purposely planned a lot of like I phrase it in my mind as like solo time, like do nothing time. And
Hmm.
I think it's really easy to worry as a practitioner that will not be enough.
Sure. Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
yet and yet that I think was like both so necessary. And I ended up like not doing some things that were on my agenda and kind of going by the seat of my pants based on the vibe of the group, because they really needed that time with one another and time to just talk and process the things that we were doing in the workshops and the activities. So that was my like, I have to lean, as I always say, you have to lean into slowing down. And I have to remember that for events and retreats, is that having that time, just time, is part of the value, and slowing down.
Oh, that is a really beautiful awareness and reflection. And also just coming back to the words that it sounds like you say a lot, like leaning into the slowdown
Mhm.
and recognizing that even though we teach it, we still practice what we teach.
Yeah, which is the hardest. We make the worst patients sometimes, right?
Well, and especially when it comes and kind of uproots or brings those feelings of, is this going to be good enough? Am I good enough? Like, it kind of brings in that kind of almost, as you're stepping into the unknown, the unknown doubt, right?
Yeah.
That comes up. And I can definitely see that that would come up for myself, I'm sure. Like, oh, I've got to pack as much in as possible and not
Yeah,
even
make the most of our time together.
exactly, and not even recognize how significant and valuable just that slow down, processing, integration, being present and mindful time can really be.
Yeah, and that's what so many of them was a challenge when it comes to giving themselves permission to say yes, right? There's a lot of like, well, I could spend the money on other things. My schedule's so busy. Can I really take 3 days that's just about me? So it's also leaning into that and giving them permission
Yeah.
that like, yeah, it is just about you. So
Oh, that's so incredible. Congratulations again on hosting your
thank
very
you.
first
Thank
in-person
you.
retreat. Where was it?
In Collingwood, Ontario.
Oh, very
It's a
fun.
beautiful mountainy area. So it was gorgeous.
Oh, yay. It sounds so blissful. And I'm excited already to hear about your next retreat
Yes,
whenever it
stay
happens.
tuned. Stay
It's
tuned.
coming. Well, I want to be mindful of your time today, Courtney. So is there anything else you want to share with everybody, and how can people connect with you? We'll have links in the show notes and everything, but share anything else that you would like to share and anything that
Yeah.
you think would be beneficial and impactful.
Well, you can find me on Instagram always. That's where I'm the most present. So
Awesome.
Instagram.com/LoyoboFit, LoYoBoFit. Um, but I would love to offer your listeners, I have a free 5-day confidence course that's really designed to help them take that first step and get a really big boost of confidence and a deeper level of understanding of themselves. So they can go to loyobofit.com. So LoYoBofit.com/free 5, the number 5, and they can get access to that.
Awesome. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. That's going to be so incredible. And if you want, the links will be in the show notes. So you don't have to worry about typing it out. You can get the links in the show notes. And thank you so, so, so much, Courtney. I appreciate you so much. And I am just so grateful for your time and your light and your magic that you shared with us today, because I know that this was a super powerful and impactful conversation, because this conversation of loving our bodies is important, because this is our one life. Like I now that I know the name, I love your name so much, because Loyobo, even though I can't roll it off my tongue yet, it's just such a beautiful, really representation. We do get this one life right now. We do get this one body right now. Let's love this life. Let's love our bodies. Let's love ourselves right now, because this is it right here, right now. There is no second loop. We get to live here now.
Yeah, and it is possible. You got to believe that it's possible to get there. Well, and thank you, Kelsey, so much for having me, and I can't wait to hear more guests and future interviews, and I know it's going to be so great.
Yay. Oh, thank you so much, Courtney. And I hope you have a beautiful rest of your day.
Thank you. You